We're here today at Logan Elm State Park. This is in Pickaway County, Ohio. We're going to be learning today about a very interesting individual in our history, Chief Logan. Born in 1725 to an Oneida Indian chief, Chief Logan was originally born and given the name Talgajut or Talgayite. He grew up with his father being a friend to a Quaker missionary or a Quaker individual by the name of Logan. His last name was Logan, James Logan. And so they were very good friends, and their family had always been friends to white people and had interacted with them and did not fight with them. They were not part of the animosity that existed between settlers and the Indians of that day. And but in 1774, some things happened that changed history forever for Chief Logan, as well as for a lot of the whites in the area. And in 1774, Chief Logan and his father and his family had moved into Ohio, and they had a camp on Yellow Creek, which is just on the far east side of Ohio, near the Ohio River. In April that year of 1774, there was some trappers and / militiamen that came down the Ohio River and discovered Logan's father and some other of the Cayuga Indians were camped along the Ohio River. So they had encountered, just a little bit before that, they had encountered a group of militiamen coming up the river in canoes, one of them being Colonel Michael Cressup. And Colonel Cressup seemed like a level-headed man, and he never attempted to do anything to stir up the pot, I guess, so to speak, with the Indians in the area. Some of his men had earlier that, a couple days prior to that, had shot and killed 2 Shawnee braves south on the Ohio River towards the southern part of the state. And there were some of them escaped and came back and told the Shawnees what had happened. And so when Logan's father and his a few of their tribe was in camp along the Ohio River there, just south of the Yellow Creek, Colonel Cressup had encountered some trappers and / militiamen, and so they were speaking like they was wanting to kill all the Indians they could, and the old adage, kill them all, let God sort them out. Well, that was kind of the attitude with a lot of the white people of the day. And so they attacked, they went down to the Indian camp, and these people were peaceful Indians. Logan's father and all of the Cayugas were peaceful to the whites, but this group of white men, one of them being a man by the name of Greathouse, they went down to the camp and they invited them up to their camp across the river in Pennsylvania, and they invited them up to drink alcohol. And so they wanted also claimed that they'd have a little shooting match. So about 5 braves and 1 woman went up the river. 3 of those individuals was related to Chief Logan. The woman was actually his sister, and his brother was with him, and his sister's husband. So these 6 individuals went up to Greathouse's camp. I believe it was a place called Baker's Bottom, there along the Ohio River. And so they brought out the whiskey or the rum or whatever they had, and they commenced to having a big drinking party. And the whites would just sip the liquor, and the Indians didn't realize that they were being set up. they got drunk, and Logan's sister refused to drink any alcohol because she was pregnant. She probably didn't like it anyway. But anyway, as the night progressed, the Cayuga Indians got drunk. And so they decided they'd have their little shooting match. So they made a target out of a handkerchief, and they put a black dot on it using some charcoal out of the fire. And they set it up and tacked it up to a tree. And so they let the Indians go first. And so as the Indians shot, they were so drunk, most of them couldn't hit the target. And but they said Logan's brother actually hit the black dot. And his brother-in-law nicked the edge of the black dot. One of the Indians barely clipped the handkerchief, and the other ones just flat out missed it. So once the Indians had shot their rifles off, these were single shot, black powder flintlock muzzle loaders, and so you only had one shot. And then it was a progressive reloading. So once they had emptied their guns, at that point, Greathouse signaled, and a group of men jumped out of the bushes and out of the darkness, and Logan's sister realized what was happening, and she took off running, screaming. Greathouse shot her in the back, and she crumpled up like a rag doll and rolled and tumbled down the riverbank. They went and they shot and killed all 5 of the Braves, Cayuga Braves. And Logan's sister was not totally dead. They went down and got her, and they lashed her arms to a pole, and they stripped her naked, and they hung her up in a tree with this pole, so their feet was about 2 feet off the ground. And Greathouse commenced to gutting her, and he sliced her open with his tomahawk and let her guts just roll out on the ground along with her baby and the contents and the placenta and all that. And so they just left her hanging there, totally slaughtered like an animal. And the others down the river heard the shots, and they got in their canoes and they came up river, the other ones that was in camp. And as they came up the river, Greathouse's men were waiting on them, and they shot them before they could get out of the canoes, and killed all of them but 2, including Chief Logan's father, who was an old man, and accounts say that he didn't have much teeth. So he was very elderly, couldn't hurt anybody. They were friendly to the whites up to that point. And so at that point, 2 of the Cayuga Braves escaped. They went up Yellow River or Yellow Creek and told Logan what happened. And Logan came over, found his dead family, and buried them. And he vowed a vow that day that he would not rest until he killed 10 people for every one of his family members that had been slain. And for the next 6 to 8 months, he did just that. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. For the next 6 months, Logan went on a killing spree. He went to the Clinch River in Tennessee. That's just on the other side of the Cumberland Gap. And he attacked the white settlement there. Could have been people that were friendly with Daniel Boone. Could have been some of Boone's family. But he attacked that settlement there, and him and his warriors were actually defeated. He went on and continued to kill until later on that year, Lord Dunmore's War had broken out. And so the Indians have been fighting back and forth with the whites, especially the settlers of Virginia and Kentucky. They didn't want the whites in Kentucky. That was their hunting ground. And so Virginia claimed Kentucky at that time. And so there was a battle at Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and Lord Dunmore's troops, they defeated the Shawnee Indians there that day. Logan, it's debatable whether Logan was with them or not. He probably was, but they were defeated there that day, and so they came back up from there, and they came to this place here. This is Pickaway County, Ohio. Little creek down there, flowing down there. And just north of here is Skippo Creek. And on Skippo Creek was the camp of Cornstalk. So the Indians, the Mingos, the Cayugas, the Shawnee, and some others that had been defeated there at Point Pleasant came back north to their campgrounds or to their villages. And Lord Dunmore sent troops to follow them to force them to sign a treaty. And just about probably 4 or 5 miles northeast of here is the location of Lord Dunmore's camp. They called it Camp Charlotte. And so a contingency of Lord Dunmore's people came there, and all of the chiefs from the area came in to sign this peace treaty, except one Indian, and that was Logan. And so they decided they wanted Logan here. So they sent a contingency to this place. If you see off in the distance, there's a small tree. That little tree right there. There's a plaque in front of it. On that site, there stood a large American elm tree. And it was huge. 160 feet, the branches spanned. I think it was somewhere around 80 feet tall. It was a huge tree. And under that tree, Chief Logan gave a speech. Logan said, he told the men that day, "I appealed to any white man to say if ever he entered Logan's cabin hungry and he gave him not meat, if ever he came cold and naked and he clothed him not." During the course of this last long and bloody war, Logan remained idle in his cabin. That was the French and Indian War. An advocate for peace. Such was my love for the whites that my countrymen pointed at as they passed by and said, "Logan is a friend of white men. I had even thought to live with you, but for the injuries of one man, Colonel Cressup, the last spring in cold blood and unprovoked, murdered all the relatives of Logan, not sparing even his women and children. There runs not a drop of my blood in the veins of any living creature. This called on me for revenge. I have sought it. I have killed many. I have fully glutted my vengeance. For my country, I rejoice at the beams of peace. Do not harbor the thought that mine is the joy of fear, for Logan never felt fear. He will not turn on his heel to save his life. Who is there to mourn for Logan? Not one." How Logan had came to blame Colonel Cressup that day was Colonel Cressup's party had been coming up the Ohio River from the south, and a couple of the men in his group shot some Shawnee Indians, unprovoked, shot them. Cressup was very angry at them for doing so. They came on up the river, and they met this great house and his group of men at a place called, I believe it was Baker's Bottom is what it was called. And they stayed there for a little while, and they communed with them a little bit, and then Cressup and his men went on north. But one of Cressup's men stayed there with Greathouse, and he was a witness to what happened. He didn't participate in the slaughter of Logan's family, and he went on to tell Colonel Cressup what had happened. Cressup was so angry about it that he made the statement. He said, if I ever see Cressup again, or if I ever see Greathouse again, I will split his head open with a tomahawk.